Is it true, Lucian? Do you have a pattern of getting involved with women who need saving? Soraya. She showed me photos of you with other women you've helped over the years. So tell me, am I just another charity case to you? You are different. How do I know that when I don't need saving anymore, you won't lose interest? How do I know this isn't just another rescue mission for you? Because I'm the one who needs saving. Don't you see that? You've brought light back into my life, Soraya. You've made me remember what it feels like to hope. Welcome back to our channel, beautiful souls. Before we dive into this incredible love story that will have you on the edge of your seat, I want to take a moment to appreciate each and every one of you amazing subscribers who make this community so special. Your support, your comments, your likes, they mean the world to us, and they're what allow us to bring you these captivating stories every single day. If you're new here, welcome to the family, and if you've been with us for a while, thank you for continuing this incredible journey with us. This is the story of how she hugged the wrong man at a bus stop, a millionaire CEO who fell for her completely, and how that one moment led to viral fame, dangerous enemies, passionate love, and eventually, the birth of Triplets. So grab your favorite drink, get comfortable, and let's dive into this emotional roller coaster that proves sometimes the most beautiful love stories begin with the most unexpected mistakes. Now, let's begin. The Mediterranean rain fell in sheets across the cobblestone streets of Valeria, turning the ancient port city into a shimmering canvas of reflected lights. Soraya Elbaz pulled her thin jacket tighter as she hurried toward the crowded bus stop, her dark hair plastered against her face, exhaustion weighing heavy on her shoulders. The double shift at the hotel restaurant had drained her, but the tips would help cover another week of her grandmother's medications. Through the downpour, she spotted a familiar navy coat, the same one she'd bought her sister Yasmin just last month. Relief flooded through her as she rushed forward, throwing her arms around the figure from behind. Yasmin, thank God you waited. The body beneath her embrace was solid, masculine, and completely unfamiliar. Strong arms instinctively encircled her waist as she pressed against a broad chest that definitely didn't belong to her teenage sister. The scent that filled her senses was intoxicating, cedar and rain and something indefinably male that made her pulse quicken. For a heartbeat that stretched into eternity, neither moved. Soraya felt the stranger's breath catch, felt the way his arms tightened slightly around her as if he didn't want to let go. Heat bloomed between them despite the cold rain, an electric connection that defied explanation. Then reality crashed back. Oh my God, Soraya gasped, pulling away to stare up into the most piercing gray eyes she'd ever seen. The man was devastatingly handsome, sharp cheekbones, a strong jaw shadowed with stubble, and lips that curved into the hint of a smile despite her obvious mortification. I'm so sorry. I thought you were your sister, he finished, his voice a low rumble that sent shivers down her spine that had nothing to do with the cold. The coat. Soraya nodded frantically, acutely aware of the curious stares from other people at the bus stop. Some were already pulling out phones, and she realized with growing horror that this moment was being captured for posterity. I should go, she stammered, but the stranger's hand caught her wrist gently. Wait. His touch was electric, sending heat racing up her arm. Are you all right? You're soaked. The simple concern in his voice nearly undid her. When was the last time someone had worried about her well-being? I'm fine, really, just embarrassed beyond belief. A genuine smile transformed his face, making him even more breathtaking. Don't be. It's the most interesting thing that's happened to me in months. Before Soraya could respond, her actual sister appeared, pushing through the crowd with an amused expression. Soraya, did you just hug a complete stranger? Heat flooded Soraya's cheeks as she turned to face Yasmin, who was indeed wearing an identical navy coat. I thought he was you, she muttered. The stranger, who had to be someone important based on the expensive cut of his clothes and the way people were staring, extended his hand to Yasmin with old-world courtesy. Lucien Moreau. And you must be the sister worth hugging strangers for. Yasmin's eyes widened in recognition. You're the hotel guy, the one who owns the Palazzo Azzurro. Among others, Lucien replied modestly, but his gaze returned to Soraya. And you are? Leaving, Soraya said quickly, grabbing Yasmin's arm. Come on, the bus is here. But as they climbed aboard, Soraya couldn't resist one last look back. Lucien Moreau stood in the rain, watching her with an intensity that made her breath catch. Even as the bus pulled away, she felt the weight of his gaze, the memory of his arms around her, the way her body had fit perfectly against his. Holy shit, Soraya, Yasmin whispered as they found seats. Do you know what that was? He's like the most eligible bachelor in the city, and you just... Humiliated myself completely, Soraya finished, burying her face in her hands. But even as embarrassment burned through her, she couldn't forget the way Lucien had looked at her, not with the calculating interest she'd grown accustomed to from men, but with something deeper. Something that had made her feel, for just a moment, like she was the only woman in the world. By morning, Soraya's life had changed forever. "Soraya, wake up." Yasmin burst into their tiny shared bedroom, phone in hand. "You're famous." Still groggy, Soraya squinted at the screen. The video was grainy but clear enough. Her desperate embrace of Lucien Moreau, the way they'd held each other in the rain, the obvious chemistry crackling between them even through the poor quality footage. The caption read, "Stranger's hug melts the city's coldest heart. Who is mystery woman?" "It has 500,000 views," Yasmin said breathlessly. "And look at the comments. Everyone's calling it the most romantic thing they've ever seen." Soraya's stomach dropped as she scrolled through the responses. Most were positive, swooning over the fairy tale moment, but others were more cynical, speculating about gold diggers and publicity stunts. "This is a nightmare," she groaned, pulling a pillow over her head. Her phone rang, an unknown number, then another, and another. "Don't answer," she told Yasmin, but it was too late. Her sister had already picked up. "Hello?" "Yes, this is her sister, a television interview. I don't think—" "Hold on." Yasmin covered the phone. "It's Channel 7. They want to interview you about the bus stop romance." "Absolutely not." Soraya was already getting dressed, her mind racing. She needed to get to work, needed to pretend this wasn't happening, needed to— A knock at their apartment door interrupted her panic. Through the peephole, she saw a delivery man holding an enormous bouquet of white roses. "Soraya Elbaz?" he asked when she cracked the door open. The card was simple, written in elegant handwriting. "For the woman who reminded me what warmth feels like. Would you have dinner with me, At the bottom was a phone number. "He found out where you live," Yasmin said, reading over her shoulder. "That's either really romantic or really creepy." Soraya stared at the card, her heart racing. Part of her was terrified by the attention, by the way her quiet life had been turned upside down. But another part, a part she'd kept buried for too long, was thrilled by the possibility of seeing Lucien again. Her phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "I hope the flowers aren't too presumptuous. I couldn't stop thinking about you. Lucien." Before she could talk herself out of it, Soraya typed back, "They're beautiful, but I don't think dinner is a good idea." His response came immediately, then coffee, or a walk, or we could just stand in the rain again. Despite everything, Soraya found herself smiling. There was something irresistible about his persistence, the way he seemed genuinely interested, rather than just intrigued by the viral moment. "One coffee," she texted back. "Somewhere quiet. I know just the place." The cafe Lucien chose was tucked away in the old quarter, far from the tourist crowds and prying cameras. Soraya arrived first, nervous energy making her fidget with her simple black dress, the nicest thing she owned. When Lucien walked in, every conversation in the small space seemed to pause. He moved with quiet confidence, his presence commanding attention without effort. But when his eyes found hers, his entire demeanor softened. "You came," he said, sliding into the seat across from her. "I almost didn't." Soraya's honesty surprised even her. "This is all very overwhelming." "The attention." Lucien's jaw tightened. "I'm sorry about that. I should have anticipated." "It's not your fault." She studied his face, noting the genuine concern there. "Though I have to ask, is this normal for you? Tracking down women who accidentally hug you?" A laugh escaped him, transforming his serious expression. "You'd be the first. Usually, people are quite intentional about getting my attention." "And how's that working out for them?" "Poorly," he admitted. "I've become rather good at spotting ulterior motives." Their eyes met across the small table, and Soraya felt that same electric pull from the night before. "So what makes you think I don't have ulterior motives?" Lucien leaned forward, his voice dropping to an intimate whisper. "Because you're trying to talk me out of being interested in you, instead of trying to impress me. Because you chose the cheapest thing on the menu and you're wearing a dress that's been mended at the shoulder, beautifully, but mended nonetheless. Because when you hugged me last night, it wasn't calculated or performed. It was real." Heat flooded Soraya's cheeks at his observation about her dress, but also at the intensity in his voice. "You notice a lot." "I notice you," he said simply. The admission hung between them, charged with possibility. Soraya felt her carefully constructed walls beginning to crack under the weight of his attention. "Tell me about yourself," Lucien said, settling back in his chair. Beyond the viral video and the sister-hugging incidents. So she did. Slowly at first, then with growing confidence as Lucien listened with genuine interest. She told him about her art studies, her singing at the jazz club on weekends, her grandmother's illness, her dreams of having her paintings displayed in galleries someday. "You're an artist," he said when she finished. "That explains it." "Explains what?" "The way you see the world, the way you move through it like you're painting it as you go." The observation was so unexpectedly poetic that Soraya felt her breath catch. "And what about you? What does the mysterious hotel magnate do when he's not being accidentally embraced by strangers?" Lucien's expression grew more guarded. "I work, I travel. I collect art, though I suspect my taste is far more conventional than yours." "That's not an answer." He smiled ruefully. "I'm out of practice with genuine conversation. Then we'll have to work on that." The words slipped out before Soraya could stop them, implying a future she wasn't sure she was ready for. But Lucien's eyes lit up with something that looked like hope. "I'd like that," he said quietly. When he walked her home, they moved slowly through the winding streets, neither wanting the evening to end. At her building's entrance, Lucien stopped, turning to face her. "Soraya," he began, then seemed to lose his words. She looked up at him, this powerful man who seemed suddenly vulnerable, and made a decision that would change everything. Rising on her toes, she pressed her lips to his. The kiss was soft at first, tentative, but when Lucien's arms came around her, pulling her closer, it deepened into something that made her knees weak. His mouth was warm and demanding, his hands tangling in her hair as she pressed against him, feeling the hard planes of his chest, the rapid beat of his heart. When they finally broke apart, both were breathing hard. "That wasn't an accident," Soraya whispered against his lips. "No," Lucien agreed, his voice rough with desire. "It wasn't." 3 days later, an elegant invitation arrived at Soraya's apartment, hand-delivered by the same courier who brought the roses. "The Palazzo Azzurro requests the honor of your presence at the annual Arts Charity Gala," Yasmin read aloud. "Holy shit, Soraya, this is the event of the year. Tickets cost more than we make in 6 months." Soraya stared at the heavy cardstock, her heart racing. Along with the invitation was another note from Lucien. "I know this world isn't yours, but I'd love to share it with you. The charity supports local artists and provides medical care for the elderly, causes I thought might speak to you. No pressure, but I hope you'll say yes." "Elle, you have to go," Yasmin said immediately. "When will you ever get another chance like this?" "I don't have anything to wear to something like that," Soraya protested, though part of her was already imagining herself in Lucien's world, seeing how the other half lived. "So we'll figure it out. Grandmama has that vintage dress from when she was young, the black one with the beading. It would be perfect on you." Their grandmother, Layla, looked up from her knitting with knowing eyes. "The dress is yours if you want it, Habibti. But more importantly, do you want to go?" Soraya thought about Lucien's kiss, the way he'd looked at her like she was something precious. "Yes," she admitted. "I do." The dress was perfect, a 1960s creation in midnight black, with intricate beadwork that caught the light. It hugged Soraya's curves in all the right places while maintaining an air of classic elegance. "You look like a movie star," Yasmin breathed as Soraya stood before their small mirror. When the car Lucien had sent arrived, a sleek black sedan with a driver who treated her like royalty, Soraya felt like she was stepping into a fairy tale. The Palazzo Azzurro was Lucien's crown jewel, a restored 18th century palace that had been transformed into the city's most luxurious hotel. Tonight, it glittered with lights and glamour, the cream of society arriving in designer gowns and expensive suits. Soraya felt suddenly out of place among the obvious wealth and sophistication, but then she saw Lucien waiting for her at the entrance, devastatingly handsome in a perfectly tailored tuxedo. When his eyes found hers, everything else faded away. "You're breathtaking," he said simply, offering her his arm. "I feel like I'm playing dress-up," she admitted as they walked into the opulent ballroom. "You belong here," Lucien said firmly. More than most of these people, the evening was a whirlwind of introductions, champagne, and curious stares. Soraya found herself surprisingly comfortable in conversations about art and social causes, her passion for both subjects shining through any nervousness about her background. But it was when the dancing began that the real magic happened. Lucien led her onto the floor as the orchestra played a slow, romantic melody. His hand settled on her waist, pulling her close while his other hand captured hers. "I don't really know how to ballroom dance," Soraya confessed. "Just follow my lead," Lucien murmured. his breath warm against her ear. As they moved together, Soraya felt the rest of the world disappear. There was only Lucian's strong arms guiding her, the heat of his body against hers, the way he looked at her like she was the only woman in the room. "You're full of surprises," she said as he spun her gracefully. "How so? I expected you to be more corporate, stuffy. But you're not." Lucian's smile was soft. "You bring out sides of me I'd forgotten existed." The admission was intimate, vulnerable, and it made Soraya's heart race. When the song ended, neither of them moved to separate. "Would you like to see the hotel?" Lucian asked quietly. "The real parts, not just the public spaces?" Soraya knew what he was really asking, could see the desire burning in his gray eyes. Her body was already responding to his proximity, to the promise in his voice. "Yes," she whispered. Lucian's private suite occupied the entire top floor of the palazzo, a stunning space that blended historical architecture with modern luxury. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered a panoramic view of the city and the Mediterranean beyond, while priceless artwork adorned the walls. But Soraya barely noticed the opulence. Her attention was entirely focused on Lucien as he poured them each a glass of wine, his movements careful and deliberate. "Are you nervous?" he asked, handing her the glass. "Terrified," she admitted honestly. "This is all so far outside my experience." Lucien set down his wine and moved closer, his hands coming up to frame her face. "We don't have to do anything you're not ready for." The gentleness in his voice, the way he was putting her comfort above his obvious desire, made Soraya's heart swell. "It's not that I'm not ready," she said softly. "It's that I've never felt anything like this before, this intensity." "Neither have I," Lucien confessed, his thumb tracing her cheekbone. "You've turned my world upside down, Soraya." When he kissed her this time, it was with a passion that took her breath away. His mouth moved against hers with increasing urgency as she responded, her hands fisting in his shirt, pulling him closer. "Are you sure?" he asked against her lips. "Yes," she breathed. "I'm sure." Lucien lifted her easily, carrying her to his bedroom where moonlight streamed through the windows, casting everything in silver. He set her down gently beside the massive bed, his hands trembling slightly as he reached for the zipper of her dress. "You're so beautiful," he whispered as the fabric pooled at her feet. Soraya felt exposed but not vulnerable under his heated gaze. Instead, she felt powerful, desired in a way that made her bold. Her hands went to his bow tie, slowly undoing it before moving to the buttons of his shirt. When they came together on the silk sheets, it was with a passion that surprised them both. Lucien worshipped her body with his hands and mouth, finding every sensitive spot, every place that made her gasp and arch beneath him. Soraya gave as good as she got, exploring the hard planes of his chest, the way his breath hitched when she kissed his throat. Their lovemaking was intense, primal, but also tender, a claiming that went both ways. When Lucien finally moved inside her, Soraya cried out at the perfect fullness, the way he filled not just her body but some empty space in her soul she hadn't even known existed. They moved together with increasing urgency, hands grasping, mouths seeking, until pleasure crashed over them both in waves that left them breathless and clinging to each other. Afterward, as they lay entwined in the moonlight, Lucien traced patterns on Soraya's bare shoulder. "Stay," he said quietly. "Stay the night." Soraya knew she should go home, should maintain some distance, some protection for her heart. But the way Lucien held her, like she was something precious he was afraid to lose, made the decision for her. "Okay," she whispered. "I'll stay." Soraya woke to sunlight streaming through unfamiliar windows and the scent of coffee and fresh pastries. For a moment she was disoriented. Then the memories of the night before came flooding back, making her cheeks warm. Lucien appeared in the doorway wearing only pajama pants, carrying a tray laden with breakfast. The sight of his bare chest in the morning light made Soraya's mouth go dry. "Good morning, beautiful," he said, setting the tray on the bedside table before leaning down to kiss her softly. "This is very fancy for morning after breakfast," Soraya observed, noting the crystal juice glasses and fine china. "Only the best for you," Lucien replied, settling beside her on the bed. "How did you sleep?" "Better than I have in months," she admitted, then blushed at the implication. Lucien's smile was satisfied, possessive. "Good. I want you comfortable here." The casual way he said it, like he expected this to become a regular occurrence, made Soraya's heart skip. "Lucien..." "I know," he said, reading her expression. "This is moving fast, but I can't bring myself to care about the timeline when everything about this feels right." Before Soraya could respond, Lucian's phone rang. He glanced at it with a frown. "I should take this," he said apologetically. "It's my business partner." As Lucian stepped onto the balcony to take the call, Soraya could hear his voice growing tense. When he returned, his expression was troubled. "What's wrong?" she asked immediately. "The video from the bus stop," Lucian said grimly. "It's caused some complications. My business partners are concerned about the publicity, and apparently they're reporters trying to find out more about you." Soraya's stomach dropped. "What kind of reporters?" "The kind that dig into people's lives looking for scandal." Lucian sat on the edge of the bed, taking her hand. "I'm going to handle this, but I wanted you to be prepared. They might approach you, your family." The thought of reporters harassing her grandmother made Soraya feel sick. "Maybe we should—" "No," Lucian said firmly. "Don't even think about ending this because of them. I won't let anyone hurt you or your family." The protective edge in his voice sent a thrill through Soraya, even as worry gnawed at her. She was falling for this man, falling hard and fast, but his world came with complications she'd never imagined. "What do we do?" she asked. Lucian's grip on her hand tightened. "We face it together." Over the next few weeks, Soraya and Lucian fell into a pattern that felt surprisingly natural despite the unusual circumstances of their meeting. He would pick her up after her shifts at the restaurant, and they would spend evenings exploring the city's hidden corners, tiny galleries, underground jazz clubs, quiet beaches where they could be alone. Their physical connection only deepened with time. Lucian was an attentive, passionate lover who seemed determined to learn every inch of her body, every sound she made when he touched her. Soraya found herself becoming bolder, more confident in expressing her own desires, reveling in the way Lucian responded to her touch. But the outside world wouldn't leave them alone. The first article appeared in a gossip magazine, Hotel Air's mystery romance, Who is the Bus Stop Beauty? It included photos of them together, speculation about Soraya's background, and thinly veiled suggestions that she was a gold digger. "Ignore it," Lucian advised when Soraya showed him the article, but she could see the tension in his jaw. The second article was worse, featuring quotes from anonymous sources claiming Soraya had deliberately targeted Lucian, that the bus stop encounter had been staged. Her art school was mentioned, along with her family's financial struggles. "They're making me sound like some kind of con artist," Soraya said, her voice shaking with anger and hurt. "Anyone who knows you would see these stories for what they are." "Lies," Lucian said firmly, pulling her into his arms. "This will blow over." But it didn't blow over. If anything, the attention intensified when photos surfaced of Lucian leaving Soraya's apartment building early one morning, clearly having spent the night. The headlines were brutal, slumming it. Billionaire's charity case romance, and From Rags to Riches, the calculated seduction of Lucien Moreau. The worst part was the effect on her family. Yasmin was approached by reporters at school, and their grandmother was harassed by photographers outside the medical clinic. "This has to stop," Soraya told Lucian after a particularly difficult day when Layla had been too upset to eat. "I can't watch my family suffer because of me." "Because of us," Lucian corrected, "and I'm handling it. My legal team is working on getting restraining orders against the most aggressive outlets." "Legal solutions won't fix this," Soraya said quietly. "The damage is already done. People see me as some kind of opportunist now." Lucian's hands framed her face, forcing her to meet his eyes. "I don't care what people think. I care about you, but I care what people think," Soraya admitted. "I care that my grandmother is being harassed. I care that Yasmin is being bullied at school. I care that your business is being affected." It was true. She'd overheard enough of Lucian's tense phone calls to know that some of his investors were concerned about the negative publicity. "None of that matters more than this," Lucian said, kissing her deeply. "More than us?" But even as Soraya melted into his embrace, she couldn't shake the feeling that their fairy tale was about to come crashing down. The woman who walked into Soraya's workplace was everything Soraya wasn't: tall, elegant, with the kind of polished beauty that came from expensive salons and designer clothes. She moved through the modest restaurant like she owned it, her presence commanding attention from every person in the room. "You must be Soraya," she said, sliding into the booth where Soraya was taking her break. "I'm Celeste Dubois." Soraya recognized the name immediately. Lucien's ex-lover, the woman who'd broken his heart and left him wary of relationships. She was even more beautiful in person, with platinum blonde hair and ice blue eyes that seemed to see everything. "What do you want?" Soraya asked directly. Celeste smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "To talk. Woman to woman. About Lucian. about what you're doing to him. Soraya felt her temper flare. I'm not doing anything to him, aren't you? Celeste leaned forward, her voice dropping to a confidential whisper. You've turned him into a laughingstock. The great Lucien Moreau, reduced to tabloid fodder over a girl from the wrong side of town. If you have something to say it, Soraya said coldly. Celeste's mask slipped slightly, revealing the calculation beneath. I'm trying to save you both from making a terrible mistake. You think this is love, but it's just novelty. Lucien has always been attracted to projects, people he thinks he can save or elevate. The words hit closer to home than Soraya wanted to admit. You don't know what you're talking about, don't I? Celeste pulled out her phone, showing Soraya a series of photos. Lucien with various women over the years, all of them clearly from different social circles than his own. The struggling actress he discovered, the refugee he sponsored, the single mother he helped get back on her feet. See the pattern? Soraya's heart sank as she looked at the images, but she forced her voice to remain steady. Those could be anyone. They could be, Celeste agreed. But they're not. They're Lucien's type, women who need saving, women who make him feel like a hero. She leaned back, studying Soraya's face. The question is, what happens when you don't need saving anymore? When the novelty wears off? Why are you telling me this? Soraya asked, though she was afraid she already knew the answer. Because I care about Lucien, Celeste said simply. We may not have worked out romantically, but I don't want to see him destroy his reputation over another charity case. The cruel words hit their mark, and Soraya felt something inside her crack. All her insecurities, all her doubts about whether someone like Lucien could truly want someone like her, came rushing to the surface. You're lying, she said, but her voice lacked conviction. Celeste stood, smoothing down her designer dress. Am I? Ask yourself this. When was the last time Lucien introduced you to his real friends, his business associates? When was the last time you appeared together at an event that wasn't charity-related? With that parting shot, Celeste walked away, leaving Soraya alone with her doubts and the terrible suspicion that maybe, just maybe, there was some truth to what she'd said. That evening, when Lucien arrived to pick her up as usual, Soraya was waiting with questions she wasn't sure she wanted answered. You're quiet tonight, he observed as they walked along the waterfront. Everything all right? Celeste came to see me today, Soraya said without preamble. Lucien stopped walking, his expression darkening. What did she want? To warn me about you, apparently. Soraya turned to face him, studying his face in the moonlight. She showed me photos, Lucien, of you with other women. Women you've helped over the years. Soraya, is it true? She interrupted. Do you have a pattern of getting involved with women who need saving? Lucien was quiet for a long moment, and his silence was answer enough. It's not what you think, he finally said. Then explain it to me, Soraya demanded, her heart breaking even as she spoke. Explain how I'm different from all the others. Because you are different, Lucien said urgently, reaching for her hands. Yes, I've helped people in the past. Yes, some of those relationships became romantic, but none of them were like this. None of them made me feel like a hero. Soraya finished bitterly. Like a savior? Like myself, Lucien said quietly. For the first time in years, like myself. The raw honesty in his voice made Soraya's chest tight, but she couldn't let go of her doubts. How do I know this isn't just another rescue mission for you? How do I know that when I don't need saving anymore, you won't lose interest? Because I'm the one who needs saving, Lucien said desperately. Don't you see that? You've brought light back into my life, Soraya. You've made me remember what it feels like to hope, to dream about a future with someone. Tears were streaming down Soraya's face now, her heart torn between love and fear. I want to believe you. Then believe me, Lucien pleaded, pulling her into his arms. Believe in us. When he kissed her, it was with a desperation that matched her own, as if he could convince her with his touch what his words couldn't. And for a moment, Soraya let herself be convinced, let herself melt into his embrace and forget all her doubts. But as they held each other on the moonlit beach, both knew that Celeste's poison had done its work. The seed of doubt had been planted, and it would take more than passion to make it disappear. 2 weeks later, Soraya's world came crashing down. She was at the art school, working on a painting that had been inspired by her nights with Lucien, all passionate reds and deep blues, when her phone rang. Soraya? Yasmin's voice was panicked. You need to come home, now. It's Grandmama. Soraya's blood turned to ice. What happened? She collapsed at the clinic. They're taking her to the hospital. The next few hours were a blur of sterile corridors, worried doctors, and the terrible waiting that came with medical emergencies. Layla had suffered a heart attack, brought on by the stress of her ongoing cancer treatment and the recent media harassment. She's stable, the doctor finally told them, but she needs surgery. The procedure is expensive, and I'm afraid your insurance won't cover all of it. Soraya felt the walls closing in around her. They'd already exhausted their savings on Layla's cancer treatments, and she had no idea how they would pay for heart surgery. How much? She asked quietly. The number the doctor quoted made her feel sick. It might as well have been $1 million for all the chance they had of raising it. That's when Lucien arrived, having rushed to the hospital as soon as Yasmin called him. He took one look at Soraya's devastated face and immediately went into action, speaking quietly with the doctors, making phone calls, arranging for the best cardiac surgeon in the city. It's handled, he told Soraya when he returned to the waiting room. The surgery is scheduled for tomorrow morning. Lucien, I can't let you. You're not letting me do anything, he said firmly. I'm choosing to help the woman I love and her family. The word love hung between them, the first time either had said it aloud. Under different circumstances, it would have been a moment of joy. Instead, it felt like another weight on Soraya's already burdened heart. This is exactly what Celeste was talking about, Soraya said quietly. You swooping in to save the day. Lucien's jaw tightened. This is about your grandmother's life, not some psychological profile Celeste thinks she has on me. Is it? Soraya challenged. Or is this just another way for you to feel needed? The hurt that flashed across Lucien's face made Soraya immediately regret her words, but she couldn't take them back. The stress, the fear, the doubts that had been building for weeks, it all came pouring out. I can't do this, she said, standing abruptly. I can't be your charity case, Lucien. I can be another woman you save. Soraya, please. But she was already walking away, leaving Lucien alone in the hospital waiting room with the echo of her words and the terrible certainty that he was losing the best thing that had ever happened to him. The surgery was successful, but the recovery was slow. Soraya spent every free moment at the hospital, holding her grandmother's hand and trying not to think about Lucien. He'd respected her request for space, but she knew he was still paying for everything: the surgery, the private room, the round-the-clock nursing care. It was Yasmin who finally forced the conversation Soraya had been avoiding. You're an idiot, her sister said bluntly as they sat in the hospital cafeteria. Excuse me? You heard me. You're throwing away the best thing that ever happened to you because you're scared. It's not that simple. It is that simple, Yasmin interrupted. Lucien loves you. Anyone with eyes can see that. And you love him. But you're so terrified of being hurt that you're hurting yourself instead. You don't understand, Soraya protested. His ex-girlfriend showed me. His bitter ex-girlfriend, who wants him back. Yasmin rolled her eyes. Yeah, I'm sure she was completely objective. She had photos, Yasmin. Proof that he has a pattern of helping people, of being generous. Oh, what a terrible character flaw. Soraya was quiet for a moment, then said softly, What if he gets tired of me? What if the novelty wears off? Yasmin's expression softened. What if it doesn't? What if this is real, and you're throwing it away because you're too scared to take a chance? Before Soraya could respond, a commotion in the hallway caught their attention. Through the cafeteria windows they could see reporters gathering, cameras flashing. What's happening? Soraya asked a passing nurse. Some big scandal, the woman replied. Something about hotel corruption and bribes. They're saying Lucien Moreau is involved. Soraya's blood ran cold. She grabbed Yasmin's hand and they rushed to find a television, joining a crowd of hospital staff and visitors watching the breaking news. The reporter's voice was grave. Allegations have surfaced claiming that Lucien Moreau, CEO of Moreau Hospitality Group, has been involved in a bribery scandal related to his recent hotel acquisitions in Eastern Europe. Documents allegedly show payments to government officials in exchange for favorable zoning decisions. Soraya felt sick as she watched footage of Lucien leaving his office, surrounded by reporters shouting questions. He looked haggard, older than she'd ever seen him. The allegations come from a former business partner, the reporter continued, who claims to have evidence of systematic corruption within Moreau's organization. A photo flashed on screen, Celeste Dubois looking perfectly composed as she spoke to reporters. I felt I had a moral obligation to come forward, Celeste was saying. The public deserves to know the truth about how Lucien Moreau conducts business. That bitch, Yasmin breathed. She's trying to destroy him. Soraya's mind was racing. This had to be connected to their relationship somehow. Celeste's way of getting revenge for Lucien choosing someone else. Without thinking, she pulled out her phone and called Lucien. It went straight to voicemail. "Lucien, it's me," she said, her voice shaking. "I saw the news. I know this is because of us, because of me. I'm so sorry. Please call me back." But hours passed with no response. When Soraya finally made it home that evening, she found a courier waiting with an envelope. Inside was a single sheet of paper, a legal document transferring ownership of a small gallery space to her name, along with a note in Lucien's handwriting. "For your art. This was always yours, regardless of what happens between us. You deserve to have your dreams come true." Soraya sank onto her couch, the paper trembling in her hands. Even in the midst of his own crisis, Lucien was still trying to take care of her, still trying to make her dreams possible. And she'd thrown it all back in his face. The next morning brought unexpected visitors, 2 men in expensive suits who introduced themselves as Lucien's lawyers. "Miss Elbaz," the older one said, "we need your help." "I don't understand." "The allegations against Mr. Moreau are false," the second lawyer explained. "We believe they're part of a coordinated attack designed to damage his reputation and business interests." "What does that have to do with me?" The lawyers exchanged glances. "We have reason to believe that your relationship with Mr. Moreau was the catalyst for this attack. Someone wanted to discredit him, and they used your connection to do it." Soraya felt sick. "Celeste." Among others, the first lawyer confirmed. "We've traced the leaked documents back to a rival hotel chain that's been trying to acquire Mr. Moreau's Eastern European properties. Ms. Dubois appears to have been working with them. But why involve me?" "Because they needed Mr. Moreau to be distracted, vulnerable. Your relationship made him both. The media attention, the personal attacks on you, it was all designed to destabilize him emotionally and professionally." The full scope of the manipulation hit Soraya like a physical blow. "They used me." "Yes," the lawyer said gently. "And now we need you to help us prove it." "How?" "Ms. Dubois approached you, didn't she? Tried to convince you that Mr. Moreau had ulterior motives?" Soraya nodded, remembering that awful conversation in the restaurant. "We need you to testify to that, to help us establish the pattern of manipulation and lies." "Where's Lucien?" Soraya asked. "Why isn't he here asking me himself?" The lawyers looked uncomfortable. "Mr. Moreau doesn't know we're here. He specifically instructed us not to involve you further. He's trying to protect you from additional scrutiny." Even now, even after she'd walked away from him, Lucien was still trying to shield her from the consequences of their relationship. "I'll do it," Soraya said without hesitation. "Whatever you need me to do, I'll do it." The next few days were a whirlwind of legal meetings, depositions, and media strategy sessions. Soraya found herself at the center of a complex web of corporate espionage and personal vendettas, but for the first time since this all began, she felt like she was fighting for something that mattered. The truth began to emerge piece by piece. Celeste had indeed been working with Lucien's business rivals, feeding them information about his personal life and helping them orchestrate the media campaign designed to discredit him. The bribery allegations were based on forged documents, and several of the witnesses had been paid to lie. But the damage to Lucien's reputation was severe. Several major investors had pulled out of his projects, and there were calls for him to step down as CEO of his own company. Through it all, Soraya didn't see him. His lawyers kept her updated on the legal proceedings, but Lucien himself remained absent from her life, honoring her request for space even as his world crumbled around him. It was Yasmin who finally forced her to confront what she was really afraid of. "You're not protecting yourself," her sister said as they sat in Layla's hospital room, watching their grandmother sleep peacefully. "You're punishing yourself." "What do you mean?" "You think you don't deserve him," Yasmin said simply. "You think someone like Lucien couldn't really love someone like us, so you're sabotaging it before he can reject you." The words hit home with painful accuracy. "Maybe I am." "Grandmama didn't raise us to be cowards," Yasmin said firmly. "She raised us to fight for what we believe in." As if summoned by her name, Layla's eyes fluttered open. "What are you two arguing about?" she asked weakly. "Soraya's being an idiot about Lucien," Yasmin said bluntly. Layla turned her wise eyes to her granddaughter. "Are you, Habibti?" "I don't know, Grandmama. Everything is so complicated." "Love is always complicated," Layla said softly. "But that doesn't make it less precious. That young man loves you. I could see it in his eyes when he looked at you. The question is, do you love him enough to fight for him?" Soraya felt tears welling up. "Yes. But what if I'm not enough? What if..." What if the sun doesn't rise tomorrow? Layla interrupted gently. What if the sea dries up? You can't live your life afraid of what might happen, child. You have to live it based on what is happening. That night, Soraya made a decision. She was done being afraid, done letting other people's doubts and manipulations control her choices. If Lucien was fighting for his reputation and his business, then she would fight too. For him, for them, for the love she'd been too scared to fully embrace. The press conference was Soraya's idea, though Lucien's lawyers initially resisted it. It's too risky, they argued. You'll be opening yourself up to more scrutiny, more attacks. Good, Soraya said firmly. Let them come. I'm done hiding. The hotel ballroom was packed with reporters, cameras, and curious onlookers. Soraya stood at the podium in a simple but elegant dress, her hands steady despite the magnitude of what she was about to do. My name is Soraya Elbaz, she began, her voice clear and strong. And I'm here to tell you the truth about my relationship with Lucien Moreau. A murmur went through the crowd, cameras flashing as she continued. 6 months ago, I made a mistake. I hugged the wrong man at a bus stop, thinking he was my sister. That man was Lucien Moreau, and that moment changed both our lives. She paused, scanning the crowd until she found Lucien standing at the back of the room. He looked shocked to see her there, his face a mixture of concern and something that might have been hope. Since then, our relationship has been dissected, analyzed, and twisted by people who don't know us and don't care about the truth. I've been called a gold digger, a social climber, a woman who targeted a wealthy man for personal gain. Her voice grew stronger, more passionate. But here's what really happened. I fell in love with a man who was kind, generous, and genuinely committed to making the world a better place. A man who has never once made me feel like a charity case or a project to be fixed. She could see Lucien moving through the crowd now, his eyes locked on hers. The allegations against Lucien Moreau are lies, fabricated by people who wanted to destroy him professionally and personally. I know this because I was approached by one of those people, his former lover, Celeste Dubois, who tried to convince me that Lucien's feelings for me weren't real. Gasps and murmurs rippled through the audience as Soraya continued. She showed me photos, told me stories, planted seeds of doubt designed to make me walk away from the best thing that ever happened to me. And for a while, it worked. I let fear and insecurity convince me that someone like Lucien couldn't really love someone like me. Lucien had reached the front of the room now, his face full of emotion as he listened to her words. But I was wrong, Soraya said, her voice breaking slightly. Love isn't about being from the same world or having the same background. It's about finding someone who sees you, really sees you, and chooses to stand by you anyway. She stepped away from the podium, walking toward Lucien as the cameras followed her every move. Lucien Moreau is not a corrupt businessman. He's not a man who preys on vulnerable women. He's the man I love, and I'm not going to let anyone destroy him without a fight. When she reached him, Lucien's hands came up to frame her face, his eyes bright with unshed tears. Soraya, he whispered. What are you doing? Fighting for us, she said simply. The way I should have from the beginning. And then, in front of dozens of cameras and hundreds of witnesses, Lucien Moreau kissed Soraya Elbaz with all the passion and love he'd been holding back. The room erupted in applause and camera flashes, but neither of them noticed. They were lost in each other, in the moment they'd both thought was gone forever. The press conference changed everything. Within hours, the video of Soraya's speech and their kiss had gone viral. Not as a scandal this time, but as a love story that captured the public's imagination. The tide of public opinion shifted dramatically. Celeste's role in the conspiracy was exposed, and she was arrested along with several executives from the rival hotel chain. The forged documents were revealed as fakes, and witnesses came forward to testify to Lucien's integrity and ethical business practices. But more importantly, Soraya and Lucien were finally free to be together without the weight of lies and manipulation hanging over them. They spent that first night back together in Lucien's penthouse, making love with a desperate passion that spoke of how close they'd come to losing each other forever. I'm sorry, Soraya whispered against his chest as they lay entwined afterward. I'm so sorry I doubted you, doubted us. You had every reason to doubt, Lucien replied, his fingers tracing patterns on her bare skin. I should have been more open about my past, should have prepared you for the kind of attacks that would come. We both made mistakes, Soraya said, lifting her head to look at him. But we found our way back to each other. Lucien's smile was soft, full of love and promise. Always. No matter what happens, we'll always find our way back to each other. 3 months later, Soraya was in her new gallery. The space Lucien had given her was perfect for showcasing local artists, when a wave of nausea hit her so suddenly she had to sit down. Are you all right? Yasmin asked, looking up from the painting she was helping to hang. I think so, Soraya said, but even as she spoke, another wave of queasiness washed over her. Actually, maybe not. It was Yasmin who suggested the possibility first, her eyes widening as she did the math. Soraya, she said slowly, when was your last period? The question hit Soraya like a bolt of lightning. In all the chaos of the past few months, the legal battles, the media attention, the emotional turmoil, she hadn't been paying attention to her cycle. Oh my God, she whispered. An hour later, she was staring at 3 positive pregnancy tests, her mind reeling with the implications. She was pregnant, with Lucien's baby. The thought should have terrified her. They'd only been back together for 3 months, were still rebuilding their relationship, still figuring out how to navigate their different worlds. But instead she felt a deep, surprising joy. She was carrying Lucien's child, a piece of both of them, created from their love. When Lucien arrived at the gallery that evening, as he did every day after work, Soraya was waiting for him with a mixture of excitement and nervousness. You look like you have news, he said, pulling her into his arms for their customary greeting kiss. I do, she said, her heart racing. Big news, good news, or bad news. That depends on how you feel about becoming a father. Lucien went very still, his eyes searching her face. Soraya, are you saying? I'm pregnant, she said simply. For a moment, Lucien didn't react at all. Then his face broke into the biggest smile she'd ever seen, and he lifted her off her feet, spinning her around the gallery as she laughed. We're having a baby, he said wonderingly when he finally set her down. We're having a baby, she confirmed. I love you, Lucien said, his hands coming to rest on her still flat stomach. I love you both. The pregnancy progressed smoothly, with Lucien being attentive to the point of being overprotective. He insisted on the best doctors, the finest prenatal care, and seemed to read every pregnancy book ever written. It was at the 20-week ultrasound that they got the surprise of their lives. Well, the technician said, moving the wand over Soraya's rounded belly. This is interesting. What's interesting? Soraya asked, suddenly worried. You're having triplets, the technician announced with a smile. 3 healthy babies. Soraya felt the world tilt on its axis. 3, the technician confirmed, pointing to the screen where 3 distinct forms were visible. Lucien, who had been holding Soraya's hand, suddenly sat down heavily in the chair beside the examination table. Are you okay? Soraya asked, concerned by his pale complexion. 3 babies, he said faintly. We're having 3 babies. Apparently so, Soraya said, starting to laugh at the absurdity of it all. Think you can handle 3 little ones? Lucien's color returned as he looked at the ultrasound screen, his expression shifting from shock to wonder to pure joy. With you? He said, bringing her hand to his lips. I can handle anything. The triplets, 2 girls and a boy, were born on a sunny spring morning, healthy and perfect. Lucien cried when he held them for the first time, overwhelmed by the magnitude of his love for these tiny beings he and Soraya had created together. They're beautiful, he whispered, cradling one of the girls while Soraya held the other 2. They look like you, Soraya said softly, noting the baby's dark hair and strong features. They have your eyes, Lucien replied, and hopefully your heart. The media, of course, went wild over the story. Bus stop romance leads to triple joy, read one headline, while another proclaimed from viral hug to happy family, the Moreau miracle. But Soraya and Lucien barely noticed the attention this time. They were too busy falling in love with their children and with each other all over again. 6 months after the babies were born, Lucien proposed, not with fanfare or publicity, but quietly, in the gallery where Soraya's paintings now hung alongside works by other local artists. I know we've done everything backward, he said, getting down on one knee as the babies slept in their carriers nearby. But I want to do this right. Soraya Labaz, will you marry me? The ring was perfect. Not ostentatious, but elegant and timeless, just like their love. Yes, Soraya said through happy tears. Yes, of course, yes. Their wedding was small and intimate, held in the garden of Lucien's hotel with only family and close friends in attendance. Yasmin was the maid of honor, while the triplets served as the world's youngest and most adorable ring-bearers. As they danced their first dance as husband and wife, Soraya marveled at the journey that had brought them to this moment. Do you ever think about that night at the bus stop? She asked, as Lucien spun her gently. Every day, he replied. Best mistake you ever made. Best mistake we ever made, she corrected. No, Lucien said, pulling her closer. The mistake was thinking we came from different worlds. The truth is, we created our own world. One where love matters more than background, where family is what you make it, and where sometimes the most beautiful things come from the most unexpected beginnings. As the music played and their children slept peacefully nearby, Soraya knew he was right. They had created something beautiful together, not just their babies, but a life, a love, a future that was uniquely theirs. And it had all started with a simple hug at a bus stop on a rainy night, when she'd mistaken a stranger for family and discovered that sometimes the best things in life come from the most unexpected places. The viral video that had started it all still played occasionally on social media, shared by people who loved a good romance story. But for Soraya and Lucien, it was just the beginning of their real love story, one that would continue for the rest of their lives, filled with passion, laughter, challenges overcome together, and a love that had proven stronger than any obstacle the world could throw at them. In the end, she had hugged the wrong man at the bus stop, but he had turned out to be exactly the right man for her. If you're new here, please don't forget to hit the subscribe button and subscribe to Love and Twilights with Dr. Phillips for more beautiful stories as this.